Anyone who's even remotely into news knows that the New York Post is both phony and conservative. But ahead of the elections, I've seen a huge uptick in just false and fabricated stories from the New York Post, especially about migrants. From this headline claiming that the feds are saying that they ran out of money because they spent it all on migrants, to this cover claiming that the migrants cost America $150 billion, with crisis zones having to cut police, fire, and other government budgets. To be honest, I don't expect much from a publication that proudly endorses Donald Trump for president, but their obsession with demonizing migrants has gotten completely out of hand. It seems like every month they have a new headline about how terrible they are. Although you and I can see these headlines and think to ourselves, well, that's ridiculous, many people on the contrary fall for their fabricated BS. It's probably why 79% of Republicans are in full support of rounding up migrants and putting them in militarized camps, alongside 47% of independents that also support that measure. And it's not just the New York Post that's on the hook here. 82% of Fox News consumers also supported that measure as well. On top of this, Trump has vowed to use a law that is 226 years old, from 1798, to fulfill all of his immigration fantasies when it comes to mass deportation. But going back to the New York Post, these headlines really stuck out to me. Feds say that there's no money left because they spent it all on immigrants, and migrants cost taxpayers in America $150 billion in just 2023 alone. So I decided to do some digging. Turns out these two headlines are complete and utter BS. FEMA's annual budget is around $30 billion. The $640 million that they did spend on migrants only accounts for about 2% of that total budget. Also, they conveniently left out in that article that Republicans are notorious for cutting FEMA funds for no apparent reason. Joplin tornado 2011. Senate Republicans blocked a $7 billion relief fund. Hurricane Ike. Republicans blocked a bill that would have stifled about $40 million of costs from damage. And that was in federal disaster grants that was supposed to go to Ike victims. Hurricane Irene. GOP lawmakers blocked Senate Dems from passing a $7 billion relief fund. And that was a package that was supposed to aid the direct victims from that hurricane. Not to mention that more recently, Matt Gaetz voted against FEMA funds right before Hurricane Helene. I can go on and on and on with these examples, but you get the point. But then I decided to look at their second article. Migrants cost American taxpayers $150 billion in 2023 alone. Turns out their entire source for this article was from a report put out by a nonprofit named FAIR, which is unsurprisingly a designated hate group. FAIR's leaders have ties to white supremacist groups and eugenics and have made incredibly racist statements from the time that they were founded. The late founder, John Tayton, expressed that he wished America remained a white population, a goal to achieve presumably by limiting the number of non-whites who enter the country. The group attempts to appear moderate, but has a record of being extreme, especially when it comes to racial issues. This strategy did pay off in 2008, when FAIR leaders started boasting about how they had testified in front of Congress about 100 times. When you go into their report that the New York Times decided to write about, it seems pretty legit at face value. When you look into the report, you see that something very sinister and evil is actually going on. First of all, this report is riddled with the word illegal alien instead of calling undocumented immigrants undocumented immigrants. And most of their numbers for their calculations are based on their best estimate. In this quote, the report says, FAIR made these calculations by taking the adjusted average earnings by illegal aliens households in each state, subtracted standard deductions as set by each state when applicable, and finally multiplied that taxable income by our estimate of the total number of illegal aliens households employed in the above ground economy in each state. In other words, their source and their estimates are just trust me, bro. As a matter of fact, the word estimate is repeated in their report multiple times. So just to do a recap, the Daily Post took a report done by a white supremacist anti-immigration nonprofit who gave their best estimate for all of their numbers and came out with this headline as if it's fact. At the time that I'm filming this, we are just days away from the election that could change the lives of immigrants in the US as we know it. In my opinion, publications like the New York Post capitalize off of the fear-mongering of migrants. It's what Republicans believe strongly in, and what gives New York Post the views and the ratings that they need for advertisement money. But regardless of these insanely stupid headlines that only drama farms off of honestly a non-issue, this type of rhetoric is dangerous. Immigrants are the backbone of our country, and the truth is our economy wouldn't survive a day without immigrants. The New York Post is not journalism. It's a far-right hate-mongering publication. that masquerades as journalism. Publications like the New York Post need to be fact-checked, and they need to be held accountable for their BS reporting. Because what happens is Republicans will take their reporting and repost it as if it's fact, without actually looking into it and understanding that a lot of their fabrication is from fear-mongering, and they source a lot of their information from far-right groups. But what do you think? Let me know. Leave a comment, subscribe, make sure you turn on that bell, and I'll see you next time.